Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm so glad you're able to join us today. I have with me today some very special guests that have some interesting things to share with you about the First LEGO League Explorer program and how they've adapted it for their school board. My name is Christine, and I'm the program manager here in Ontario for First LEGO League Discover and First LEGO League Explore. One of my first guests that I'm going to introduce you to is Phil. Phil, for those of you that don't know him, is a first senior mentor. We have a number of first senior mentors in Ontario, and they actually exist much broader than that. You can find them across the United States as well. And the job primarily of a first senior mentor is to help support and grow our programs. So we're always grateful to have our first senior mentors like Phil help us out with things like this. And this particular initiative is one that's near and dear to him. It's not only taking place in his backyard, but he was sort of the catalyst that sort of got things going. So Phil, I'm going to turn it over to you and you can introduce some of our other special guests.
Thanks, Christine. Yes, a first senior mentor, as Christine has indicated, provides support to all the programs across First. And this one in particular, the First LEGO League Explore, is a program for children that are age 6 to 10. And they explore the elements of science, technology, engineering, and math, and through various programming that we do. And they also put together a presentation that they do on a certain theme. Our first programs always have a theme every year, and so they look at real world issues within their neighborhood or their community, and they'll explore something around that. They'll also build a little motorized model as well as part of that program too. And my interest in this particular initiative that we have here is really comes out of also my other hat that I wear as a trustee with the Hamilton Wentworth Catholic District School Board. And with that school board and my trustee role, I have the honor of being part of a committee called the Special Education Advisory Committee. And through that, I have had exposure to some wonderful staff within the Hamilton Wentworth Catholic District School Board that focus on special education and the needs of our students. And in learning more about what they do and how they serve our students with special needs, I thought, well, you know, there may be some opportunities here to introduce some, at least components of the First LEGO League Explore program here that might make it a little easier for some of those students to learn and really explore some of the interest that they may have around robotics as well. So I made contact with one of our tremendous stars of our staff with the Hamilton Wentworth Catholic School Board, Leilani Licuna, who I would like to throw off to her to introduce herself and take it from there. Leilani?
Thank you, Phil, for that introduction. And thanks, Christine, for having us. I am Leilani Lacuna, and I am one of the behavior analysts with the Hamilton Wentworth Catholic District School Board on the Applied Behavior Analysis team. And on this team, I actually share responsibilities with my colleague who's also on this call. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Leilani, and hi, everyone. It's so great to be here today. My name is Jenna Shime, and I am also a board-certified behavior analyst with the ABA team with our school board.
Thank you, Jenna. And our ABA team supports all students within the school board with or without exceptionalities. And we often do collaborate and support special education resource teachers across the school board, who we also have on this call, Ms. Carrie Joy Mitchell.
Hi, I'm Carrie Joy Mitchell. Thank you so much for having me here as well. Very excited to share all the fun things that we have done with our students. So thanks.
Well, we really appreciate having you and taking the time out to share not only with Phil and myself all the great things that you're doing, but with our community sort of in a broader sense, because I think that you're going to really serve as an inspiration to some of the other schools and school boards out there. And I think what you're doing is really exciting. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about it. I wondered if you might be able to start off with telling us a little bit about sort of the needs of your particular students.
Sure, Christine. In terms of the project, this came again from Phil, who did look at providing us with an opportunity for students with special education needs that we support for the really popular school activity. The ABA team, as I mentioned, does support all students within our school board, but more specifically, we do get called in to support students that require more intensive tier 2, so small group, but also individualized tier 3 interventions. And this really is to support the students who are presenting with significant behavioral concerns. And those can range from physical aggression to property destruction, et cetera. The range is vast. And in terms of how this came about with this project, the students that we wanted to involve in this opportunity is students that had the interest in Lego or robotics, but their problem behaviors might otherwise interfered with their collaboration in a group setting. So sometimes that prevented them from being able to participate. And that's why with this opportunity, it's trying to build their skills so they can actually participate and get that chance to explore the different opportunities that First Canada offers other students with the same interests.
That's great. Yeah. And the program is designed to be quite flexible, which I think is one of the nice things about it. It comes with a program guide or a meeting guide, and it is just that. It's a guide. You can adapt it to suit the specific needs of your specific students and your environment and whatever else you may need to adapt to. So that's really wonderful. So I know, speaking of adapting things, that you've made some adaptations to the program to better suit the students that you're serving. And I know you've had many successes in that too. So maybe you could tell us or share a little bit more about those.
Sure. I'm going to start just kind of the format of how we adapted the program to start, and then Ms. Dwyer Mitchell or Carrie is actually going to take over with a further explanation about some of the examples of adaptations that we had. So I'm just going to share my screen really quick just to show an image. Let me know if it comes up on the screen.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. That's
okay,
great.
Wonderful. So this ABA robotics project, you will see two formats on the screen. We initially started with one-to-one support. And again, as I mentioned, the students who participated or who were selected for this project were students that had significant behavioral concerns, but again, it interfered with them participating in a group. So on the far left, under June 2021, you see the image of two students, one in one school and one in the other, and we actually connected them virtually. So that way they didn't actually lose that social connection, and it was our way to at least start with some of that social skills building in a least intrusive format if they weren't able to be in person because of the pandemic. So that was actually the first adaptation, is starting with one student to make sure that we could manage the behavioral with ABA interventions so that they could actually participate in the Explore program. And in the second picture you see for our summer project, in August of 2021, we actually expanded the group, but again, we still had the adaptation of the virtual connection over Teams. So we still had the same two schools, but we actually increased the group size. Now I'll pass it over to Ms. Dwyer Mitchell to talk about a couple of other adaptations.
Thanks, Ailani. Okay, so for the guide, for the session itself. So the way we planned out the sessions, we wanted the student to come in on both, when we have one student at one location and the other, just to come in and have free play to begin with, because both of them were so interested in Legos, love building with Legos. So we started off with the free play, and then we interrupted the free play for them to do the Lego challenge. So the challenges were all kind of outlined in the guideline, as you said, and very easy to kind of follow the books. They liked that because they're used to the Lego kits they get at home, and they could follow page by page to kind of how to build whatever it was they had to build for the day. So after they built their Lego challenge, again, they were allowed to, you know, kind of use that whatever they built and now free play with it. So sometimes there was like, how can I change the fan to go this way? So they played around with that, but then we also interrupted. So for my particular student, you know, he likes to control his environment. So we'd ask, you know, can I maybe put on this block over here to help with your building of your playground? So we did interruptions that way. And we also did interruptions for them to show the other person on virtually what they were building. So there was then an instruction, you know, to let's share what you did. How does yours work? And so then we got the social aspect kind of in between, even though they were in two different sites. And for my student, that social interaction is something, you know, he's used to playing on his own, but he actually really enjoyed. And then we had a little fun with it where we'd actually do the joke of the day as well. So you had to come up with something for when we left so that, you know, the other crew was listening to our jokes. So we had a lot of fun with, you know, talking about different things. And even while we were playing with the Legos, we were always trying to figure out what joke we were going to say to the other team. So then it was done, and we cleaned up. And that student, again, somebody who, you know, he's finished with something, he's off to the next thing. He always kind of complied, helped to clean up, so it was all ready so we could start it up for the next day. So then with the guideline books that came with the kit, we decided we had to adapt it a little bit because my particular student doesn't like paper, feels like paper might be work. So we adapted an electronic notebook using Keynote. So the notebook so in this notebook, they could personalize it. So the very first page, that's where they could actually insert their own picture. So where you see the little Lego guy, this particular student decided to put name in and then decided to put a picture of a Lego that they found online, but they could have also taken a picture of themselves or take a picture of a little Lego just to personalize it because it belongs to them. And then as the lessons came about, the very first lesson was just us kind of talking about it. Again, we took this straight out of the guide. The graphics are the same. We took the pictures. Let's talk about fitness. Let's talk about where we get active. And as you continue through the book in each lesson we did, you know, we brainstorm. Where do you like to play? Where do you like to be active? What games do you like to play? These were little discussions to get them going to think about so that on the next page of their notebook, they got to look at the actual pieces of the Legos. And when they looked at the pieces, they had to say, okay, what could you use in here to help you design your active space? So this is where that block that you see at the bottom of the page, students could actually either use voice speech to text so that it would type what their answer is. They could type it if they wanted to. There was also audio, so they could use the audio button just to speak. Some of them chose to do that just to tell us, so we could just press play, or they could take a video of themselves talking about their answers. So as we go through the book, you can see, and we can press play to show the other pages. Each page, there's an example of an audio there where they inserted their audio. So that it kind of differentiated whatever works best for them to express their ideas.
I really love that. And yeah, I can definitely see how you've incorporated the notebook.
If you see my drawing, they're called monkey bars. That's what I drew. So basically, you have like blue pulls as like the things for the monkey bars to like stay on. At the start, you have to get on this yellow thing. It was like round and attached to the pole, but the drawing program doesn't allow it to be hollow.
So that's where you can see that now as a teacher, I can really pull from that some an assessment on his explanation. Whereas if that student had to write it down, they would have shut down on us, right? But I found the motivation, sure, I'll tell you all about my structure, or I'll take a picture of it and insert it into my digital notebook or a video to demonstrate to my teacher different curriculum expectations, which we ended up using for that student to assess them in curriculum. So you can see that they're taking pictures there. There's an example of a video inserted right into their notebook. So the instructions were there and they put in their video right away, as well as an audio of their answer to the question. So they always had to build it, and then there was always an instruction that they had to follow to show what they had done.
This is great. This is great.
Thanks, Carrie. And then another adaptation before we get into a specific case example is how do we merge the ABA with robotics? And so as I mentioned, we use applied behavior analysis to teach new skills and to decrease the problem behaviors that we see with our students. So given that we were seeing challenging behaviors, how did we match that with specific individualized goals? Because that's always our goal, is to assess behavior, assess where their skills are at, and teach them functional replacement behaviors, and also teach them desired behaviors, so that those problem behaviors that they're exhibiting just become irrelevant and inefficient, so they are more likely to shift towards engaging in those appropriate behaviors. And so what we did within the ABA lens is we baseline specific skills or goals that we typically saw students having difficulty with. For example, tolerating interruption with a preferred and getting them to complete or comply with a brief demand. Having them tolerate denied access. So when you say, no, you can't have that right now, or no, it's not available, or no, someone else is playing with that, can they tolerate it? The other piece was having them actually comply with Lego challenges. As Carrie went through a couple of the challenges that you saw in the keynote notebook that she adapted, we had some students wanting to do their own thing. So we needed to get them to comply with what was actually in the program. Having them comply with a transition off preferred. So some students had the iPad as a preferred, and getting them to get off the iPad to then comply with the ABA and robotics programming. And another big piece was actually tolerating shared items or shared peers in their environment with materials, because often you see with the Lego, they have to share all the materials or build together. And that was, again, one of the goals that we found was really important for the students to have. And we also conducted functional behavior assessments for specific behavioral goals to identify functions, so we knew how to develop a function-based plan with strategies to decrease those behaviors. So from those assessments, we then created specific intervention goals that each student had and collected data on those specific goals. So although they were going through the program, we also had specific behavioral goals for them. And speaking of behavioral goals, I'll then pass it off to Jenna, who's going to talk about a specific student, and then I can share the data and the success after.
Thank you, Leilani. So my involvement with this program started from Leilani coming to me with this great idea and project, and me happening to have a student on my caseload who fit the profile and who could really benefit from this type of programming. So this student had significantly challenging behavior, so he engaged in things like physical aggression and property destruction. And his problem behavior really occurred in specific contexts where demands were placed on him. So like Carrie mentioned, the students that did not prefer those paper pencil tasks or any work in general, if it appeared to look like work, didn't like if play was interrupted, or didn't like if he wasn't able to control particular aspects of his day. So for this little guy, prior to robotics, he was making progress with his programming at the school. And that included, like Leilani mentioned, teaching him new skills. to be able to replace problem behavior and engage in more appropriate behaviors. And for him specifically, we really wanted to work on his flexibility and his ability to tolerate different situations, you know, where problem behavior was more likely to show. We wanted to teach him some new skills. So we can engage in other things. It's okay to transition off of preferred. It's okay to play the way other people want to play as well. So problem behavior was reducing before robotics, but the thing was we weren't able to find something that allowed us to really build upon the skills that we were hoping for him to acquire. So we wanted him to be able to access relationships with peers. We wanted him to be able to engage in curriculum when he's transitioning off preferred or tolerating interruptions, which is really where robotics came in and blended that ABA approach with a vessel for working on all those really tough goals for the student. You can see here in just a visual form, so the orange data path that's on your screen is showing the duration of problem behavior that the student was engaging in. So at the very beginning was about 180 minutes per day of that problem behavior that was really significant and had a big impact on the school environment, as Carrie can speak to. So we did see that go down in intervention. Unfortunately, we had school closures and we are into a virtual world. Now, when we were working with this student virtually, it was just really hard to get those interruptions in, get him to shift. So you can imagine he'd be sharing our screen and we'd be trying to engage and play with him and then try to get him to pause there and attend to something else. And while he's much smarter than me in terms of technology, and you could know that that screen was still on, it was in the corner, he just stopped sharing it. So it was really hard to kind of push him beyond, again, not just reducing problem behavior, but what else can we teach? And then in came robotics for him. So when we were able to get him into this program and give him the materials and tools that he was really motivated to engage with, we were able to find those windows of opportunity to interrupt and work on that flexibility and that tolerance. Thanks, Leilani. And here's another example of an adaptation that we use specific for this student. So I mentioned that he was quite rigid. He likes things to go his way. He liked to control things. So another adaptation that we did put in place that contributed to his success in the robotics program and the Lego was just these specific rules. So if we are able to play to his interests and his kind of rigidity, so he likes things to be a certain way in a particular order, we are able to give him rules, but then work on his flexibility, which is a really beautiful thing. So when he came into the program, he had certain expectations of him that you can see here. So he had to look at the Lego things he built before. He had to listen to the task and complete it. And then he was allowed to play. And this fits into the schedule that Carrie went over as well. So when he was allowed to play, that's when we were able to do a little bit of playing our way in those interruptions to really work on those tough skills without engaging in problem behavior. And then again, we had a little bit of social interaction there as well at the end by engaging or saying goodbye to a peer or to the joke, and then him having access to that free time and playing his way again.
That's really great. I love the specific examples, and it's great to see how adaptable things are and how you were able to use what was already there and sort of make a even better fit for your particular students. That's great.
I think.
Sorry, go ahead, Phil.
I think as well, some of those adaptations, Christine, that this team has done here, and some of what we think are fairly simple adaptations, like ensuring that they're using the same kinds of communication tools that the students is accustomed to, like using their iPad and those sorts of things. I think that really makes this program a lot more accessible and inclusive than for other students. And I think this is something that many teachers, classroom teachers, can pick up, and even parents to say that, oh, this is an interesting adaptation. This would be great for my child. That really would be interested in doing something like this, but has had these either attention issues or behavioral issues or learning disabilities that might come in the way of being part of a team or part of the program as we present it to them. So I think this is great that you've come up with these wonderful ideas that really help adapt the programs to suit the needs of the students that would really benefit from this type of learning.
Couldn't agree more. And it's so great of us. It's such a great opportunity for us to have all of you here because of your wealth of knowledge and your experience too. So you can help us learn and sort of continue to inspire our community to use these tools in a really adaptive kind of way to better suit our community. So with all of this knowledge that you've gained now in doing this, anything you'd do differently or any plans for the future, how you might expand the program or what you might change up a little bit?
I think it'd actually be really reflective if you hear Carrie talk about a specific success story, if that's okay to shift back a bit. And then at the end, we can just show overall what are some preliminary outcomes, and then we could probably share some hopes for the future.
Sounds great. That sounds great.
Thanks, Leilani. So the one student we began with that we started talking about, that we first started the program with. So after that, as I said before, we couldn't get him to do much work at all. So what ended up happening the next year, which was last year, we programmed Lego robotics into his day. So he had expectations. You saw the wonderful schedule that Jenna had made for him. We started making him schedules. So he had a schedule for last year that included going to class, which he did, doing this amount of work, which he did, free play, which he did, nutrition breaks where you can play as you want in the tech lab, which he came, where he started socializing with other students that had been doing the Lego program with me, but we hadn't done it with him yet because we weren't sure how he would be with sharing. And then that led to his robotics in the afternoon every day. So he kind of went through, that was the Playmaker kit. He then tried out the Cargo Connect. So we did a similar thing. I made a new notebook for him. He did the Cargo Connect, which then led him to Spike. So then we had the Spike kits that we did some robotic pieces with him for that. And then he had peers come. So he had one peer in particular that had also been part of the summer program that they started building together. So now he's sharing kits and now he's sharing pieces. So this year, now that he is older and now in intermediate and we want to get him ready for high school, he's actually going to be on our FLL team, our robotics team. So he's going to have specific ideas that he has to do. We still have to adapt it a little bit because he doesn't love an open-ended problem, right? So at the beginning when we say build a playground, he doesn't love to tell him to build a play. He wants a rule, right? So we already kind of talked about, you know, what his role will be. And so he will be part of our team that will be competing this year along with some of his peers. So that we're really looking forward to this year.
Wow, that is success.
Yeah. And then if you think about what Jenna was saying about where the student started and he wasn't able to be in the group, significant problem behavior, and now he's actually being able to participate in the actual competition. And I have a video, it's probably one of our favorite videos of him, which I know you guys have seen already. And it's the video of him where he was actually practicing telling a joke. And Carrie, do you want to give a bit of a backstory on the joke before I show the video? It's the fan one.
It's the oh, he had just built a fan, right? Okay, sorry. That was so long ago now. So he loved the WeDo kit that goes with those, right? So we had just built, that's the piece where he had just figured out how to, the first time he used the WeDo kit and he built the fan to work. So then he was thinking of a joke.
So this is the joke that he's telling with the student who's online at the other school.
Yeah, no problem.
The guy on here, and I start spinning. I'm a total fan of this fan.
So we absolutely love that joke of his. And then if we think about just overall preliminary outcomes of both programs, both when we first started with the 2 students in June, and then we did the pilot where we expanded to about 3 to 4 students in each school for the summer program. The graph represents the total percentage of goals achieved by each program, so June and in August. And you can see in June, the pilot program across two students, 100% of their individualized goals were mastered, including what Jenna was speaking about for interruptions and tolerating someone giving him a different option and him accepting that other choice. And in August of 2021, you can see that 77% of the individualized goals were mastered, 15% were approaching mastery, and 8% of the goals had limited progress. So overall, if you think about even just within a short period of time, June was, I believe, 10 days. Is that correct, Carrie?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep. And then August was only 5 days. So it was only 1 week. So even within a short period of time, we did see success with a combination of applied behavior analysis with robotics as the common interest and the preferred piece that really capture their interest and motivation to actually participate in the program and work on the skills that were outlined for them as their individualized goals.
That's wonderful. Warms my heart. So back to your future sort of ideas, what directions you might be heading?
I think from an ABA perspective from our team, we would like to see the program grow. So as we've started with 2 schools, we would like to see more schools get involved with this to provide this opportunity to students with special education needs and building an ABA to reduce problem behaviors, but then to capitalize on the skills they can learn using robotics. So that's our first goal, if we're able to. And then again, just trying to increase the number of sizes of students in the group. So it's not just 1 student with 1 teacher, that we can actually work towards building that up to 3-4 students. And Carrie's really the pioneer behind this. So I don't know, Carrie, if you want to share any ideas that you have. I know you have brilliant ones.
Well, thanks, Leilani. But honestly, yeah, I think it's just when we took the summer crew too, both sites, we added another student together and we introduced, and then we built it up with them as well. So we keep kind of growing the program within the school, but within our virtual friends. So I would love this time around, because hopefully restrictions of COVID are the better, is for us with our virtual friends to actually get together. So can we get together, at one of our schools and have our own kind of little challenge together? And then that just gets us all together. I don't know. And I find students that weren't very good at, talking to each other, when they were sitting together with one kit, one of them be like, okay, I'm going to hold the book here. It's this page. This is the piece you need. Here you go. And then the other student be like, okay, now it's my turn for this page. So they even worked that out where some of us were kind of looking, going, uh-oh, this could go really bad. But I don't know. There's just so many benefits in so many ways. So yeah, it's definitely expanding it out would be great.
That's great. And don't forget, First Robotics Canada and people like our first senior mentors like Phil are also here to help you. So feel free to loop us in or see how we can add additional support, because we're there for all the teams across Ontario. And we're happy to share any learnings that we might sort of pick up from maybe potentially another group that might be doing something similar someday. Before we end off, any extra or little tips that you might have for another school board or school that might be looking to do something like this in their area?
I think from a structure perspective of finding students, we didn't rule out any particular students, because again, we were trying to provide the opportunity for students that otherwise may not have been able to participate in groups. But if you do have students with significant behavioral concerns, it would be important with that ABA lens to make sure you do your functional behavior assessment process, you put in an appropriate behavior support plan, because you want to make sure they're successful behaviorally so they can be able to take advantage of being able to participate with robotics and manipulating the Legos and tolerating no and tolerating interruptions, for example. So making sure you have that lens first, and then the assessment process and individualized goals would be important in terms of a tip for moving forward with students with significant behavioral concerns. And then Carrie, I know you had a couple of things that you learned in terms of how to kind of structure the group. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, yeah, without the ABA team, like it wouldn't have been possible. So I know they're very nice and like kind to me about the programming for the Legos, but I think I would have worn a lot of Legos if would have been thrown at me if I didn't have that support piece. But just the structuring of knowing your group too. And like I said, sometimes the wide, I think I talked about the open questions. Sometimes we're too open. So when with a classroom, and I have used the Lego kits in the classroom as well. So I have kind of both lenses where I have done this with a whole class activity, but some of this for our students is a little bit too broad of a question. So that's why you can see we narrowed it down to even looking at the pieces in the bag. And that's because we knew our students, but sometimes we even threw it out there and then we could see the behavior was escalating. So that's where we had to kind of modify. So I think it's important too, that you might come up with your keynote and that perfect kind of book, but then we're like throwing in slides as we're working on it, because we know we have to adapt with the child as well and kind of go with their successes. So yeah.
Those are really, really excellent points. And I can't thank you enough for sharing with us. It really means a lot to me. And it's wonderful to hear about the success that you've had. So thank you again for your time today. And a reminder to everybody to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can hear first about videos like this and our other programs as well. And if you have any questions, you can always refer to the firstroboticscanada.org website. It's got a wealth of resources there, and we'll include this particular video link there as well. And also feel free to reach out. You can reach me by email at christine.bibick@firstroboticscanada.org. Thanks so much once again, and take care.